Hello everyone, that's tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at the weather next week's 10 days in today's video. This is going to take us around the 3rd of February, so we're going to the final month of the winter with this update. We'll also start off having a look at the central England temperature, see what that's doing for January, and we'll have all the latest on the stratospheric warming that's coming up at the end of the week over the North Pole. But before I get on with all of that, to say about the ads, there's links to articles on the pages. If you have a browser widget, to click through the links. If there's any articles that you're interested in, you're helping us to pay for our website. And thanks very much for doing that. So we'll start off with the central England temperature. This is the very latest. It's provisional up to yesterday, 22nd of January. We stand at 4.8, which is an anomaly of 1.2 degrees above average. So this has come down quite a bit over the past week, because about a week ago, this was running around 1.5 to 2 degrees above average. So now we're just running around a degree above 61 to 1990 average. I would suspect we'll stay there in that sort of area through to the end of the month. So I don't think we're going to have a big deviation this month, but we probably will finish up on the milder than average side. So the latest on the stratospheric warming, this is the stratospheric temperature forecast from the GFS model from the website meteosil.fr. This is where we currently stand at 10 HPA, which is the top layer of the, or one of the top layers of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. The blue colours there are where we've got cold temperatures over the North Pole right now. You notice we've got these yellows around the edges, trying to push warmer temperatures in towards the North Pole, but not quite been able to do so at the moment. It's still quite cold at 10 HPA over the pole. Now, as we run through the week, you've noticed that we get through to around the end of the week, go through to 27th of January, and we get these red colours appearing again across Siberia. That's the stratospheric warming, big warming that's occurring across Siberia in the stratosphere at the end of the week. And as we go through into the weekend, this warming pushes into the pole. Notice those blue colours being pushed out of the pole as these yellow and bright colours penetrate into the top of the North Pole. So big warming events still taking place at the end of the week. It's been forecast very, very well this by the GFS model for the 27th of January. That's still the day when it all happens. The warmth pushes into the pole at 10 HPA, and as we go through to the end of January, it's still there. And actually, we get through to the very end of the month, it's the 1st of February, and we find a second warming is occurring. So the temperature will shoot up, if this is right, over the pole at the end of the week and the weekend, then level off for a day or two, and then lift off again. So that's a second warming that the GFS is increasingly keen on at the moment. And that just keeps those warm temperatures in over the pole at 10 HPA. With the cold temperatures down there in the mid-latitudes through the Atlantic and Europe. And right way to the end of a GFS run, which is the 8th of February, still looks pretty warm over the top of the pole at 10 HPA. That's how the GFS is forecasting things to develop. And what about the ECMWF? This is from the University of Berlin website, where they first observed stratospheric warming in, I think it was January 1952. And they've been monitoring the stratosphere ever since then at the University of Berlin. So again, these are the temperature forecasts, this time from the ECMWF model at 10 HPA. This is for 27th of January, again the day when all that warming kicks off over Siberia in the stratosphere. ECMWF is seeing it as well, those red colours are there over the Siberian side of the pole. The actual North Pole is where that black cross is, just there. So just starting to push in towards the top of the pole on the 27th of January. As we move through to the 30th of January, you see then those warm temperatures are pushing into the pole. So a very dramatic warming taking place at the end of the week and into the weekend as well, at 10 HPA. And as we go through to the end of the ECMWF run, which is on the 1st of February, again, you see the temperatures are levelling off a little bit. You'd expect that to happen. It can't maintain that level of warmth in the stratosphere all that long, but even on the 1st of February, still looks pretty warm there with those sort of brown, orange colours still there, tan colours over the pole, indicating the temperature still many, many degrees above where you'd expect them to be at that point. Now, what we've got to do with this to have any impact on the weather is that we've got to lower this down into the lower levels of the atmosphere. At the moment, this is all being forecast for 10 HPA, which is the top level of the atmosphere. But to have an impact on the weather, this has got to come down into the troposphere. When it gets to the troposphere, if we have these warm temperatures in the troposphere, which is the layer of the atmosphere where weather is actually taking place, if we get these warm temperatures there, then we can start to set up high pressure over the pole. And high pressure is the route, blocking is the route to push the cold out of the pole, surface cold out of the pole, and down into the mid-latitude. So when we get our coldest weather, it tends to be preceded, it tends to come after a stratospheric warming or a sudden stratospheric warming. To see whether this is going down into the lower levels of the atmosphere, we have to look at 30 HPA, which is still in the stratosphere, but it's a slightly lower level. So this is how things are looking on the 28th of January at 30 HPA. You see, it's still cold then. So whilst in 10 HPA, we're already getting this dramatic warming occurring. As we go through to 30 HPA, there's no real sign of it. It still looks pretty cold, especially over the top of the pole where we've got that black cross. Now, if we run on a little bit further, we go through to the 30th of January, still no real sign of those warm temperatures appearing at 30 HPA then. There is a little bit of, there are some slightly warmer temperatures around here, but still really I think the temperatures aren't that far from average on the 30th of January. And then we go through to the 1st of February. And now we do start to see signs of some warmer colours turning up, some warmer temperatures. So we've got this area of orange beginning to appear over top of the pole at 30 HPA on the 1st of February. So it takes a few days to start to move this down, which is why there's always a time lag, or normally there's a time lag between getting a sudden stratospheric warming, 10 HPA, and then getting the response in the atmosphere in terms of the blocking and eventually cold conditions potentially. There's always a 2 or 3 week delay, and the reason is that it takes a while for this to move down the layers of the atmosphere and get to the troposphere. But by the 1st of February, at 30 HPA, we are beginning to see a response. So we are beginning to see that warming starting to appear there at 30 HPA, telling us that the warm event that takes place at 10 HPA is starting to move down the layers of the atmosphere. So you would need to go on a few more days and see whether that's sustained before you can say that there probably will be a response in the troposphere to that stratospheric warming. Obviously, I'll be keeping you posted about this over the next few days as we close in on the stratospheric warming that's coming up at the end of the week. Coming back to the next week to 10 days, anyway, we have a look at the 500 millibar high anomaly flow chart. It's got the ECMWF here on the top, the GFS, we'll have a look at it in a moment. It's on the bottom, 500 millibars, 80,000 feet, is an area in the atmosphere where high pressure, low pressure being moved around by the jet stream running above. Blue on these charts extrapolates to low pressure, and red and orange to high pressure. So we see that the ECMWF has this ridge being pushed away. This ridge has given us a lot of dry and for the south, very cold weather over the past week. By the time we get through to a week to 10 days away, which is going into the start of February, that ridge is being pushed in towards the east of Europe as this trough in the Atlantic is deepening. So we've still got the idea we were talking about last week, which is for increasingly unsettled weather to be moving in from the Atlantic, a deep trough of low pressure there out to our west, which would be bringing bands of rain and potentially quite strong winds across the country. Also mild temperatures, because the air is being dragged up from a rather central part of the Atlantic Ocean, so not a particularly cold air mass coming in. With that, if we have a look at the GFS, it's all very, very similar. There's that deep trough again out to our west, a jet stream indicated by the tight lines here. That's picking up as well. So it looks unsettled. I think it's probably going to take a day or two longer for the Atlantic to get in. So we're looking more of a weekend into the start of next week, but eventually when the Atlantic does get in, it looks like it's leading to quite an unsettled Atlantic driven spell for the very end of January and into the start of February. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next 2 weeks. The red line here is 30-year temperature average. We're still cold on average now, but it's coming to an end. By the end of the week, we're going to be seeing the temperatures lifting off, going back above average. And then as we go through the start of February, this is 1st February just here, it just looks generally quite mild and also unsettled. So the temperatures are coming out milder than average. We've got plenty of precipitation spikes. So end of January, start of February, looks like we're going into a more unsettled spell. But one caveat, you'll notice these outlier members here, which are cold outliers, beginning to appear within the GFS ensembles. There's only a few of them, there's only about 4, but for around the end of January, when we're expecting it to turn milder and Atlantic driven, these are doing something different. I have had a quick look at the GFS ensembles and had a look at these individual members. Most of them are building high pressure over Scandinavia and getting the wind into the east for a few days, right at the very end of January. They're not supported by the GFS ensembles at all, really. The ensemble mean is above average through this period, but they are possibilities. I suspect what the model is doing, it's seeing that stratospheric warming and probably developing a Scandinavian high too quickly as a response to it. But just keeping back in mind that not 100% certain we're turning mild and unsettled for the very end of January and the start of February. That is the way the model is trending and has been for quite some time. Temperature anomalies for the next week. This goes from the 23rd of January to the 31st. We're going bit milder than average again through the coming weeks. Scandinavia still looking very significantly above average with temperatures elsewhere. Most parts of Europe still looking cold, particularly in the east and the southeast of Europe, where you're firmly locked into the freezer again for another week. Been a really, really cold winter pretty much of southern and southeastern Europe. The precipitation anomaly for the next week, most of Europe coming out drier than average, very significantly so. It is trending though more wetter, it's trending wetter for the UK. The eastern side of the UK still coming out in the coming week a little bit drier than average, but the west coming out a bit wetter than average. I would expect these to start trending wetter over the next few days. Here we go with GFS then, and this is for Friday. So the high pressure has given us sort of a dry and cold weather over the past week or so. That's been pushed into the east of Europe. Low pressure trying to come in from the Atlantic. We're in a southerly flow, which isn't especially warm actually, because it's cold across France. Normally you'll think a southerly is going to be quite mild, but there's a lot of cold air to get out of France before we can start thinking about drawing up mild air from the south. So actually that would be quite a cold wind still on Friday. Into the weekend, low pressure trying to break through, but you'll notice pressure remains fairly high really for the southeast of the country particularly, but in the north and the west does look more unsettled with some wind and rain, and that starts to push down across the country as we go into next week. This is Tuesday 31st of January, when all places are turning unsettled. Then there'll be rain for the whole country. And as we go through up to day 10, which takes us to Thursday 2nd of January, it's looking much more unsettled. And notice this low pressure just here, going down towards northern parts of Spain and the Bay of Biscay. So that could be a sign that the jet stream is beginning to slip southwards as well. That could be the first indication of the stratospheric warming. I would suspect the first way it will manifest itself will be for the jet stream to begin to move southwards, only subtly and not doing anything overly dramatic to start off with, but the jet stream moves southwards. And as the low pressures come in, we possibly start to bring some colder air in on the northern edge of those low pressures. We have a look at the ECMWF again. For Friday, we're in that southerly wind, which will be quite a cold wind as well. Then we go through into the weekend. We tried to keep high pressure hanging on, but eventually that's broken down. At the start of next week, the Atlantic really starts to get into the driving seat, and then go through to the beginning of February. Again, looking very unsettled indeed. This is a deep area of low pressure that's in the Atlantic. This one, though, is further north, so the GFS is placing this low pressure down here somewhere on the 2nd of February, whereas the ECMWF wants it up here. But wherever it is in the Atlantic, it looks very unsettled that as we go through to the start of February, there'll be quite a bit of heavy rain coming through that, and probably quite strong winds as well. The GM, finally, there's that southerly wind on Friday, which again, it will be quite a cold wind as well. We move through into the weekend, looking unsettled. This is more unsettled for the weekend than the other two. It's probably a little bit overdone. But if it comes off, it will be unsettled in all places over the weekend. We go through into next week, and again, we've got this idea that the jet stream is possibly going on a northwest-southeast trajectory. Notice this black line just here, that is the jet stream. So it's definitely going northwest southeast, and on the northern side of these low pressures we're probably starting to pull some cold air into them from the north. Again, that could just be the first hints of the stratospheric warming starting to have an effect, but it's probably a bit early really for that. I would expect there is an effect from this stratospheric warming. I expect it to be more in the middle part of February through to the end of the month. So really from Valentine's through to the end of February is when I would expect we'll see a response, if we're going to get one, to the stratospheric warming. I think that 2nd of February, probably a bit too early. But all looking very interesting anyway in terms of what's happening over the stratosphere. It will be the big talking point over the next few days as we try to decipher whether we're going to have, whether we're going to have an effect from the stratospheric warming. In the more immediate term, though, we've got cold weather to continue till around Thursday and Friday. Then it turns a bit milder, unsettled for the north and west, but probably not too much rain into the southeast, even over the weekend. Next week does look significantly more unsettled, but it is being put back, this. So whether it ever truly gets unsettled down in the southeast, I've still got my doubts about how much rain we're going to get down to the southeast with all of this, but we'll just have to wait and see. Right, that's all for now. Have more on the stratospheric warming tomorrow. Probably also look at the CFS as well tomorrow. Also, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.